Hey everyone, it's Sonia here. So Canada is basically under martial law. Trudeau has invoked the Emergencies Act. Oh, they're not saying it's martial law, and if you look out in the street, it doesn't look like it. But for all intents and purposes, it is martial law. So I want to give you the rundown on what happened and what this all means. Not that I'm an expert, but I'll tell you what I found out so far. And also, the GiveSendGo for the convoy has been hacked, and the hackers left a very weird message that didn't look like at all the kind of message hackers would normally leave. So I'm going to get into all of this regarding the Emergencies Act and how it can affect everything from where you can go to, things that might happen to your bank account. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about what happened to GiveSendGo as well. Before I start, I just want to say thanks for liking my video. Thanks for liking me too. I feel liked, I feel loved. So thank you for liking me and my video. And thank you for being my patron on Patreon, which keeps my channel going. I don't like to pass the Starbucks cup around, but I just want to let you know that I really do rely on viewer support. So if you hit me up on Patreon, even for $1, I really appreciate it. And that way, actually, what you get out of it, especially, is you will get notified every time I upload and when I do a premiere, and you can message me on there too. Also, I just want to let you know I still have the link for my Patriot Supply, which is Prepare with Truther Girls. If you are still looking to get some MREs delivered to your door, it's not too late. It can be done. And if you use the link below, you get $50 off a 4-week supply of MREs that are specially prepared to last 25 years. So they're ready when you need them. And yeah, so if you're interested, check out the link for more info and a discount. All right, let's talk about this. Trudeau invokes Emergencies Act, but won't use military to quell protests. He says he's not going to use the military, just like he said that vaccines wouldn't be mandatory. Here's what he says. Justin Trudeau: the scope of these measures will be time limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. Just like your response to the pandemic was reasonable and proportionate to the threat it was meant to address. Trudeau said the additional powers the Emergency Act provides will be used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies at all levels across the country. I can just hear his voice saying this. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions. Oh my God. I'm pretty sure that it's going to turn out to be the opposite of that. Okay, I feel actually kind of nauseous reading Justin Trudeau's comments. I thought it was important to document them, but I don't think I can take any more. So let's look at what does the Emergencies Act actually entail. So it would have to be a national emergency threatening the sovereignty, security, or territorial integrity of the state. In this preamble, you'll notice that they mention the governor and council should be authorized to take special temporary measures that may not be appropriate in normal times. Notice governor and council is mentioned. These other acts pertaining to travel restrictions, also, it was from the governor and council. There are many governors and council. They have been appointed by the governor general, and this is the other branch of our government, not the legislative branch, our prime minister and our premiers, but the monarchy. So a lot of what we've been experiencing here in Canada in terms of restrictions has been coming through the governors and council. The governor and council, in taking such special temporary measures, would be subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Canadian Bill of Rights, and must have regard to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, particularly with respect to those fundamental rights that are not to be limited or abridged, even in a national emergency. Funny, because a lot of us would say that our fundamental rights have been limited and abridged for the last 2 years, even without this act being in effect. You can imagine how much more limited and abridged they're going to be now that this has gone into effect. So what this bill says is that in order to invoke this act, it has to be an urgent and critical situation that seriously endangers the lives, health, or safety of Canadians. The cabinet can only invoke this if the emergency cannot be addressed by any existing federal law, and if it exceeds the capacity of the provinces to handle it effectively. My 2 cents there, it's a protest, but it's not like a civil war, or it's not even a riot. I mean, you should see what's going on in Europe. This is a festival compared to what they have over there, and they're not under martial law. And it cannot be addressed by existing federal law exceeds the capacity of what the provinces can handle. I don't agree either, because I mean, look, they cleared the Ambassador Bridge before this was enacted, so they do have tools. And apparently, Ontario has its own emergency act that they can enact, and that gives them tools as well. So is there really a need to apply this to the entire country? And actually, several of the premiers have been totally in disagreement with this. Saskatchewan, Alberta, of course, Manitoba, and surprisingly, even François Legault. I mean, I say surprisingly because it looks like he likes dictatorship, but I guess he only likes it when he's running it. It's got to be on his terms. If you look at Quebec right now, there's absolutely nothing going on. We had a protest. It was peaceful. Yeah, there were some death threats, but I mean, they're looking into it, and nothing happened. And actually now a lot of our restrictions are lifting, and I guess people are happier. So there is no civil unrest in Quebec. I mean, people are disgruntled, but there's no protests happening here. There's nothing. So what do we need martial law for? Everything's chill over here. So Legault doesn't like it. I tend to think that Legault, his sole purpose right now is to get reelected. So anything that could sabotage that, he won't be on board. And enacting this kind of thing might actually fuel the problem. Maybe he's worried it'll spill over into Quebec. I don't know. I'm just speculating. The Emergencies Act outlines 4 different types of emergencies: public welfare, public order emergencies, international emergencies, and war emergencies. So if the legislation is invoked, it'll likely be under public order category. But the criteria is strict. Lawful protests do not qualify. So here is how it has to qualify by one of these scenarios. Espionage or sabotage. That's not it. Foreign influence activities. I don't think so. I mean, unless you want to blame the Russians again. But I don't think that's it. Threats or use of acts of serious violence for political, religious, or ideological objectives. Well, that's what happened during the October crisis, but that's not what's happening now. Scratch that one. Next, covert, unlawful acts intended to undermine or overthrow the constitutionally established government. Well, I guess the blockades are unlawful, but they haven't been covert. And none of this is to overthrow the government. It's actually to restore the government. The problem they have is that the government right now is ruling very top down with these mandates and orders from the governor and council or the federal government, but it's not the legislative assembly. None of this is being done democratically. It's all just coming top down. So if you want that to stop, what they're saying is end the mandates. What they're asking for is for the government to be restored, because a lot of people in the government are supporting that, but somehow it's Trudeau himself who just blocks it. It's weird too, because I had heard from one of the members of parliament, her name is Ferrari. She was saying they were supposed to have a hearing today in the National Assembly about removing the mandates. And I was feeling optimistic and hopeful. And then I opened the news, and instead of hearing about their discussion, I discover that Justin Trudeau has imposed martial law. So disappointing. So overthrowing the government? I don't think so. Well, I mean, they may want there to be a vote of no confidence and get Trudeau out, but that's all within the framework of what's legal to do. And that whole business about that MOU, I looked into that, this business with James Bader and Sandra Bader and their site that they have. They don't represent the Convoy. That guy has been actually trying to start Convoy since 2019. And they have this website, and I guess they wrote this MOU, which has now been removed, as they said, because as they had discovered, it did not represent the intentions or the spirit of the Convoy. So whatever that was, the media keeps saying, oh, look, here's the proof they wanted to overthrow the government. But that's not what the convoy is about. In fact, Pat King had received a letter from someone who he said was a Freemason. I mean, there's a picture of the guy. He had like a little personal stamp with his name and a picture, and he had this like garland type thing around him, like around his neck. And that guy was proposing to Patrick King to call off the protesters on the Ambassador Bridge, which Pat King said, I don't have the power or authority to do that. I'm not really the Grand Dragon. Despite what the media says, he's not the Grand Dragon. And B, he was proposing to him to start his own political party. And he said, call it something like the Canadian Freedom Party or the National Party of Canada, and run for office. You could be the next prime minister. And Pat King said he wasn't interested at all in that. So they don't want to take over the government. None of the people in there have created a party or proposed themselves as replacements for the government we have. They just want things to go back to normal, as far as I understand. So anyway, these are the terms, and I guess they're going to try to probably use this one. But I mean, to me, it looks pretty bogus. I mean, the other option would be to actually have that discussion in the Parliament about removing the federal mandates for work and for travel. That would be the other option, to discuss it and then have a vote on it, removing the mandates. But Trudeau just always blocks it. He doesn't, I mean, I watch a lot of parliamentary discussions, and I started to really wonder, like, what is wrong with Justin Trudeau? I don't know if you've been watching them, but something's very strange. And it's like, instead of actually debating or answering the question, all he does is repeat sound bites. So he always says, Canadians have never been so united. 90% of Canadians have gotten vaccinated, which is proof that they're okay with this, the mandates. Never mind that 30% of them were forced. 90% of Canadians have been vaccinated. Vaccines are the best way out of the pandemic, and vaccines are the best way to avoid lockdowns. That's basically all he ever says. Now, having looked at this and seeing the role of the governor and council, I'm wondering whether Justin Trudeau really even has the power that he would need to overturn these mandates, or are they in the hands of the governors and council? I don't know, something weird is going on. You'd think that they could have a debate and then overturn it in Parliament, but it's like something's wrong where like it's just getting blocked by Trudeau. And even members of the Liberal Party are like, hey, what are you doing? Dividing Canadians and, keeping these crazy mandates. I feel like there's something else going on there. Like, well, it's coming from a lot higher up. And he at this point, he cannot go against it. And then on top of that, there will be massive financial implication. Federal government is also going after financial support for illegal activity associated with the convoy protest. So they talk about the GoFundMe, which was shut down, and then GiveSendGo. And the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, said that under the Emergencies Act, crowdfunding platforms and the payment service providers they use must register with the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada, the National Financial Intelligence Agency. They must also report large and suspicious transactions to FinTrack. We are making these changes because we know these platforms are being used to support illegal blockades and illegal activity, which is damaging the Canadian economy. So ironic. Nobody could have possibly done more damage to the Canadian economy than Justin Trudeau himself. And yet we're still funding him. Canadian financial institutions can now temporarily cease providing financial services if the institution suspects an account is being used to further the illegal blockades and occupations. The order covers both personal and corporate accounts. So what this means is that if you made donations, they can freeze your bank account. They can freeze the fundraisers, but they can freeze your bank account too. And not just through those platforms, but direct donations, they can be frozen too. Bank freezes Freedom Convoy donations. So TD announced they'll not be handing over the 1.4 million donations that were given through the bank, and is planning to surrender the money to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice instead. A representative for the top 10 North American financial institution revealed that TD has asked the court to accept the funds which were raised through crowdfunding and deposited into personal accounts at TD. So if you take donations and then they decide that what you're taking them for is no good, they can freeze that. They can give it to, I guess, the court. And if you make donations, they can freeze your bank accounts too. And then they could just freeze the whole fundraiser. Apparently, one of the immediate effects of these new rules concerning bank accounts was there has been a run on the banks. As someone said online, I just went to the bank and drained my account. The teller said there has been a run on draining bank accounts since Trudeau made the beautiful announcement. Watching Trudeau is like watching a horror movie. He's literally digging his own grave. Billions of dollars are being taken out of the banks every way possible today. So that's pretty serious. I'm not recommending you go make a run on the bank, but just letting you know that that's what some people are doing. So actually, the Convoy people have decided to start moving to crypto. They were encouraging the truckers to sign up for Tallycoin, and they've now created also their own cryptocurrency. I forget what it's called, Convoy something. And they're encouraging people to buy that and donate to the Convoy with that. So it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse. It keeps going back and forth with one upping the other. So GiveSendGo also got hacked and is now frozen. If you go to their website, they say that they're making, they're fixing some technical problems. But what happened was they got hacked, and the hackers left a message. It sounds really weird. I mean, you listen to this. Tell me what you think. Attention, GiveSendGo grifters and patriots. The Canadian government has informed you that the money you assholes raised to fund an insurrection is frozen. TD Bank has frozen several accounts. You helped fund the January 6th insurrection in the US. You helped fund an insurrection in Ottawa. In fact, you are committed to funding anything that keeps the raging fire of misinformation going until that it burns the world's collective democracies down. Wow. This definitely sounds like if it was a hacker, it was certainly a very leftist hacker. I thought that usually hackers were kind of anti-government and like more pro-freedom, like maybe even kind of anarchists. So I'm kind of really surprised. These hackers, whoever they are, seem to be really on board with what the government's been doing. Kind of makes you wonder whether maybe actually it was the government. Somebody in the government who hacked them, GiveSendGo. I mean, this doesn't sound like any hackers I've ever heard of before. It's very out of character, let's just say. I mean, if I was a, forensic investigator here, I would say there's something weird about the MO, and it doesn't fit the profile. GiveSendGo, demon hackers take over GiveSendGo website, then post the personal information of Freedom Convoy donors online. So that's the other shitty part. Not only did they hack it, they found out exactly who had donated, and then they basically doxed them, posted all their info online. I'm not sure if that list is still up. I think it might be down, but the government still has it. They're the only ones who are allowed to have it. Them and the journalists. Why journalists? I don't know. They get special access to the list. But yeah, basically, thanks to these leftist hackers trying to restore democracy, the government now has a list of names of all the people who donated to GiveSendGo. So there's that. There was one last thing. I just want to come back to the question of, whether this is really martial law. I mean, look, all our legacy media, as it's now called, you notice it used to be called mainstream media, and they call it legacy media. I'm not sure when this happened, but there's been some kind of a shift. But anyway, legacy media, certainly not referring to it as martial law here, but in other places they are. Canada's Justin Trudeau preparing to declare martial law. Paradise News, breaking, Trudeau has declared martial law against Freedom Convoy protest. The Western Standard, Trudeau's act of war. So yeah, here's a Canadian paper, but it's not a legacy media. The Prime Minister of Canada has, for all intents and purposes, declared war against what he deems to be a domestic enemy insurgency. So, I mean, some people are just calling it what it is. Some people are still trying to use some euphemisms. But it seems like we are under martial law, and I just cannot wrap my head around why he would do this to the entire country, especially when there are some parts that are totally unaffected by any of this. Maybe it's just a preemptive. Let's impose martial law in case there's an insurgency or even a protest. And now they're going to be able to redefine what you're allowed to do when you're protesting because of this. Like, you know, you're not allowed to use a truck. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have money. Whatever. We'll shut down your bank account. They got all these special powers now. There was one incident which they're using to give them, you know, more excuse or reason for why they need to do this, which was covered on Vice. Police make Freedom Convoy arrests, find guns, body armor, and machete. So apparently this was at the blockade in Alberta, armed to the teeth and ready for violence. I mean, I'll leave you the link so you can read it, but Alberta RCMP put out a tweet that they had made arrests at the Coutts border blockade, and they said 13 long guns, handguns, multiple sets of body armor, a machete, large quantity of ammunition, high capacity magazines, which is scary. I mean, supposedly it's not, you know, it's not representing the convoy as a whole, but a subgroup, which I guess it could happen. But what I was wondering was like, okay, so where are the articles showing us these people? I mean, remember when they kidnapped Governor Whitmer in the States, and they showed the pictures of who did it. So, I mean, this just happened, but so far we don't know who these people are. If they don't tell us who they are, we're going to get suspicious and think that they were cops or some kind of plants or something. Somebody tried to ram a police vehicle. But anyway, they're using this as a reason for why they need to ramp it up, but it still doesn't explain why you would do this to the entire country. It's not looking very good. I mean, we were thinking that we're going to get out of some of these restrictions, and it's like out of the frying pan and into the fire. Just as they start lifting, you know, the vaccine passport and the capacity limits, and they open things up, and then, oh, but you're under martial law. I don't know how much more of this we can take. Anyway, I'll keep you updated. I just want to let you know what had happened here. One of the worst things that could come out of this would be bans on interprovincial travel. I mean, who needs a virus to block you from going to Ontario when you have martial law doing it? It would suck, because some people here were looking forward to going over there just, you know, for restaurants and movies and museums and spas and things that people do around here, but I guess not. So that's it, guys. I hope that information is useful to you. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to check out the link for the MREs. And thanks again for your support and for liking me in my video. And thanks for listening to me. And I'll see you next time.